Let's continue with the symbols. We have discussed about the blue sky, the doctors, and the dramatic irony at the end of the story. Now we are going to focus on door. Now, just as windows represent freedom of mind, the door in the story represents the freedom to move from place to place. And suppose one happens to close the door, what he or she portrays, that she is not ready to move out of that place. Exactly, that's what Lewis had been thinking and doing. The reason is she enjoyed her privacy. She enjoyed her privacy. For in her privacy, or rather because of the door which she had locked, she was away from the world, away from the society, at least for an hour. A society which she subconsciously detests, a society for which she has despise. So, the door is more like something which happens to keep her aloof from the rest of the world and allow her to ponder about the perspectives ahead. Thus, the idea of Lewis locking herself in the room, realizing her newfound independence and promoting thoughts in isolation, happen behind the very door. Means there are two things what's happening. She is into exploring her newfound freedom. That's point number one, and that happens in the room while she is left isolated. And the second thing what happens is, she promotes her thoughts. She allows her thoughts to propagate and bloom, and that also happens inside the room. So this isolation is seriously important. And the very door, what secludes her from the rest of the world, play a very, very important role. Now, secludes her means keeps her away, as we have discussed. Remember, the door is more like a barricade that stops the outer world to intervene into Louis's privacy. The door happens to symbolize a barricade which stops the world from intervening as well as interrupting in Louis's privacy, and thus allows her, allows her to enjoy her freedom, to explore it, and to feel rejuvenated. The problem with the world is this, the society is, they always happen to, they always end up being nosy parkers. The intervention sometimes becomes so strong that it becomes difficult for anyone to bear it. So the doors are important, very important. In fact, the door is important, The next what we would talk about, the other symbol, is the goddess of victory. Now, after being coaxed out of her room by Josephine, Louis descends the stairs unwittingly like a goddess of victory. This is the exact quote which we have extracted from the text. Which one? Unwittingly like a goddess of victory. Who comes down the stairs like the goddess of victory? Louis. After being coaxed by her sister, And this happens at the end of that hour. Now, what does goddess of victory signify? So Louise is coming down the stairs being coaxed by Josephine. She's coming downwards or walking downwards towards Richard. Richard is the husband of Josephine. Now, this gives the image of royalty, as if she's feeling majestic. She's feeling like a queen. And the whole thing has been portrayed like it is portrayed in the celluloid. And we find Richard, who is standing downstairs, looking at her, looking up to her. So, what the author happens to use? The term unwitting. Now, that it is unwitting indicates that Louise is only starting to understand the significance of the events of the day. However, she still feels victorious, which is short-living and nothing more than illusion. For this victory is nothing but an illusion. Why this victory is an illusion? And what's the victory about? The victory is about, she considering to have vanquished or defeated the oppression, because the oppression has come to an end with the death of her husband. She feels liberated, and this liberation or freedom makes her feel victorious. Absolutely victorious. Now, when you read that quote, you will find out the term victory has been assigned with the capital letter V. So it has been capitalized, isn't it? Well, to talk about an illusion. What illusion? Nike, that's winged victory rather, and Athena. In fact, it refers to the story of Nike and Athena, with Nike ending up victorious. Okay. Now, this is significant because Athena, often seen as either another version of victory or as her mother, was a virgin goddess. Virgin at that time and had nothing to do with anything called sex, and instead meant someone not controlled by a man. In other words, an independent woman. So, the quote, Louise unwittingly, like a goddess of victory walking downstairs, is an allusion to the story of Nike and Athena. Who is Athena? Athena is a Greek goddess. And, she's a virgin goddess, means she had no husband. And what does that show or reveal? It reveals that Athena had been a spinster. That means she was not in the clutches of any god, any man god or male god. And often, according to another version of victory, this virgin goddess is portrayed as someone who had always been free from her opposite sex. So this allusion happens to draw a connection between Louise and Athena. For Louise feels just like Athena, for she is no more in the clutches of her husband. Just like Athena had never been in clutch of any male god, according to one version of the Greek mythology. So this reference is important, and goddess of victory refers to Athena, and she had been victorious over the male dominancy, for she could lead her life alone and choose according to her desire. Well, Lewis's role here is no less, or Lewis's thoughts here are no less than what Athena might have had been thinking throughout her life, for she was free. So Lewis almost feels like Athena, for she is no more in the clutches of her man. She is free. So as Lewis has just found herself to be independent, this is a fitting allusion. I would say this is a perfect allusion. And this should not be overlooked. This must not be overlooked. Now, referring back to the term unwittingly, I again would like to say that unwittingly indicates that Lewis is only starting to understand the significance of the events of that day. She's not using her wit, her intelligence. She is rather more left exposed to her dreams. So it would naturally take time on her counterpart. She would naturally take time, to understand what has happened, what has taken place in the course of the day. For she is now going to come face to face. She is now going to come face to face with the harshest truth of her life. For she will discover her husband being alive, and with that her dreams would shatter. And the feeling that she had been like victory or Athena, means victory, she had been feeling the victory like Athena, would soon vaporize or disappear. And after that, we all know what would happen. She would die because of the loss of joy. So, do not overlook this quote, this phrase, this allusion. Allusion means where you are referring to a kind of story. Maybe the story has become a legend, or it is a part of the mythology, so on and so. But you should not lose. Your patience, and you should focus on what it happens to stand for. We will continue the discussion.